Welcome to Our Montana. I'm your program host. And you know, those of us who live in Billings really are fortunate. We have the most amazing public land backyard of hardly anybody in the country. When you think about the Pryor Mountains and the Beartooth Mountains, you've got an amazing piece of property there that we get to enjoy without anybody saying that you can't go there. We can hike the trails, we can fish, we can hike, we can camp, and we're so glad to have that area in our backyard. But you know, we put the management of that public estate in the hands of seasoned professional managers of the U.S. Forest Service. And I'm very glad to have one of the key guys with me today, Ken Coffin, manager of the Beartooth District, the Custer Gallatin National Forest. Welcome, Ken.
Thanks, Mike.
It's good to see you. Thank you for joining me. I know you're having a busy summer. Fire season is beginning to perk. That keeps you on your toes, does it not?
Indeed.
Ken, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Montana. I was actually born in Phoenix, but didn't live there very long. And shortly after that, my dad worked for the Forest Service. So.
Oh my gosh, we got a second generation going on here.
We do. And so anyway, we spent time in Libby, Phillipsburg, Stevensville, and I mostly grew up in West Yellowstone, though. That was his last stop.
Oh.
And so after that, I graduated from high school there and went to school at Montana State, where I got a undergraduate degree in biology and then went on to get a master's degree in fish and wildlife management. A degree that I'm not sure actually exists anymore. I think it's more along the lines of conservation biology these days. But yeah, that's.
Well, with your district, fish and wildlife management is not a bad piece of academic to have under your belt, is it?
It is. No, yeah. It helps inform a lot of decisions that we make.
You've been on the Beartooth District now for what, 4 years? Or?
Be 5 years in November. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Well, are you enjoying this experience here?
Yeah, I am, Mike. It's an interesting landscape. Most of the district is wilderness, probably 65%, 67% is wilderness, a good chunk of roadless, but in that remaining 13 or 14%, there's a lot going on in terms of lots of recreational use, stillwater mine, grazing. So it's what I would call a traditional ranger district in that there's a lot of different uses going on out there. But no, it's been a great experience. It's a little more complex than what my previous district ranger experience. But
where were you a ranger before this?
So I was on the White River National Forest, which I believe you're familiar with.
I am. That.
Out of Meeker, Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
So it's was a much smaller, less complex district than here.
It gets recreation use too there. But
it does.
Probably not like this Beartooth District.
No.
Recreation is a big piece of what you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, is it not?
Indeed, yeah, it really is. Yeah, we have all different forms. I mean, the people that come and throw a tent out just off the road, to people that stay in a developed campground, to people that throw on a backpack and hike into the middle of the Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness.
Some darn good fishing streams too here on this district.
Absolutely.
You work pretty closely with Fish and Wildlife guys.
Yeah.
With the state.
Yeah, we have Sean Stewart's the local biologist here, and we talk on not regularly, but a fairly frequent schedule.
You've got some of the finest trout streams in the country on your district, don't you?
Yeah, you've got and
lakes too.
Yeah, especially lakes. I think probably more known for the lakes, I would imagine. But lots of opportunity for backcountry fishing opportunities, both native species as well as rainbow trout and brown trout and brook trout, golden trout for that matter as well. So
you got some native cutthroat here. Headwaters of some really important rivers right here, so it's an important piece of country you've got stewardship over. Red Lodge gets its water from the Custer Gallatin National Forest, does it not?
Yeah, right below us here in the West Fork of Rock Creek.
Tell me about recreation this summer. I know that outdoor recreation has been pretty busy, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, Mike. It's just an example that I gave you earlier, but the campgrounds that we manage and collect fees on, those receipts have doubled from what they normally are.
Oh, wow.
So I think that speaks volumes to the level of use that we're getting this year. It's really, people that have been here for a number of years have never seen anything like it, and it's really nice to see people come to the forest and enjoy the forest. But it's a lot of folks, and we're having to kind of step up our game and devote a little more time to it. We're having a lot of unattended campfires we're finding.
Oh, really?
Several camps where people have come and haven't picked up after themselves. So that work's always there, but this year it's really increased.
Do you think it might be new campers that are not used to doing this kind of thing?
My sense is there are a lot of people that haven't traditionally done this, based on people I've talked to and seen on the trail, based on some of the camps we've had to clean up. That's kind of my sense, that there are some newcomers.
I wondered about that. People are trying to get out of the cities, and I suspect the Custer Gallatin forest is a refuge in a way, don't you? I mean, it is for me, I know.
Oh, I think so. On most weekends, our customers are the Billings crowd, Yellowstone County. I mean, that's where most of our people come from.
You also are responsible for the Prairies, which is a really important area for those of us in Billings. We use that area a lot.
Yep.
Have you seen use change up there?
No, I haven't. I've been over there several times, albeit, mostly in the middle of the week. But other reports I'm getting, that doesn't seem to have changed a lot. Although I will say, Mike, though, in the spring, it seemed like there was a lot more use in the Prairies. I've
been up there several times this summer. I've seen a lot of use. The four-wheeler use up there, that's such an important use in the Prairies, is it not?
Yeah, I think it's the best way to see the Prairies, and we recognize that. And Jeff Gildehouse and my staff is, for the last 3 or 4 years, has put in for grants, and we've been able to do a lot of work on some of the main thoroughfares, especially on Big Prairie Mountain, like Stockman's.
I saw some of that. You're getting some drainage on some of those roads. You can still get them over them just fine with four-wheelers. But I was pleased to see some of that work you're doing.
Yeah, and we've done some restoration work there at the Bainbridge cabin. People were shortcutting the switchbacks.
I saw that.
It's really good work.
The management plan. I've been studying the new management plan that the Custer Gallatin, you guys have been working on for 2 years now? Quite a long time.
4 years.
Oh my gracious! I know it's a big project. I was pleased to see that you are proposing some new wilderness areas in the Prairies, and something called backcountry areas.
Yep.
Is that going to have impact on four-wheelers? Are you going to cut out four-wheelers when you?
So no, it won't. Travel management plan, where people have traditionally gone for the last 9 years, or since 2009 when we finalized the travel management plan, that hasn't changed. And we, as you said, we designated or allocated, I guess is maybe a better way to say that, 2 recommended wilderness areas in the Prairies, Bear Canyon and Lost Water Canyon. Lost Water Canyon was a recommended wilderness area in the prior old Custer plan, and we moved that forward, and we added some acreage to that just to grab a little bit more of Crooked Creek Canyon, because that's quite a spectacular piece of ground. And then Bear Canyon was the other place that we allocated as a recommended wilderness area, and that one's about 10,000 acres. But both of those places really provide opportunities for solitude, opportunities for primitive and unconfined recreation.
Yes,
so it meets the bar in terms of a wilderness area, and it's really a spectacular and unique landscapes, and
it's amazing.
It provides an opportunity for people just to kind of wander around. You've got canyons and other physical features that kind of help guide you along.
It's a pretty neat country. Now those areas are recommended for wilderness, but Congress still has to deal with those. Yeah. Do they not? Now the backcountry areas, that is an administrative. You guys can decide to manage those. tell me about what's the difference between backcountry and wilderness?
Well, for all intents and purposes, I mean, recommended wilderness areas are managed more or less as a wilderness area. The backcountry areas, the concept or the thought behind those is that, you know, we didn't feel like the Big Pryor backcountry area and the Punch Bowl area, while they are neat places, just didn't quite rise to that same level as Bear Canyon or Lost Water Canyon. But we really were thinking about maintaining existing uses of that landscape going into the future. I mean, people seem to, you know, the motorized piece of it, grazing is still a piece of it. And we really wanted to kind of freeze management, if you will, into the future. So while it's more permissive, we could do fuels management or vegetation management in those areas, whereas in recommended wilderness we wouldn't.
Like a prescribed fire?
Like a prescribed fire, or even, you know, even mechanical work would be permissible there. But whereas in the recommended wilderness areas, we wouldn't do that kind of work.
What other, the Rock Creek, you're proposing something special for management there, are you not?
Yeah, so Rock Creek, which is not in the Pryors, that's back over here, just south of Red Lodge. We've designated that as a recreation emphasis area, and we've had several of these around the forest, and it's really recognizing the importance of that particular area to recreationists, particularly people that like to camp. We have developed campgrounds there. We have dispersed recreation where you can drive off the road a short distance and pitch a tent or take your trailer. There's hiking opportunities there. There's the Hell Roaring Road that goes up to the plateau. You can take your OHVs there. We have another OHV trail that connects the Lake Fork to that area. So it's just it's highly valued by people for recreation, and it's acknowledgement of that, and basically saying to the public that we see that as one of the higher and best uses of that landscape.
Will you be doing other additional planning in that area? I know it gets tremendous use. It's just a wonderful place to go.
Yeah,
fishing's pretty good too.
We will, Mike, and we've kind of started some of that this summer. You know, I'm a little concerned about the experience that people are actually having there, because there are so many people that are using that.
Some areas are getting pretty heavily used too, I noticed.
They are. So there's some resource protection measures that we need to take. You know, OHV traffic along the road is concerning to me. It's allowed, but kind of having in my mind, it's a safety issue. And so we're trying to make some more contact with people that are riding OHVs to educate them and try to keep speeds down, and just try to be a little more cognizant of the other people that go there who want more of a quiet experience and don't want to hear OHVs ripping up and down the road all night long.
Yeah. So recreation is a real economic driver, is it not, for Red Lodge and other communities around here? So it's going to be important to maintain the quality, isn't it, Ken?
Yes.
How do you see the future for your district? What are the issues you see facing you in the future?
Well, I think the biggest one to me, Mike, is just the number of people that are in the world today and will be. I mean, we're making more people, but we're not making more land, and we're going to have to come up with ways that we can manage that, and try not to be too terribly restrictive about that. But there are some places like the Beaten Path, the East Rosebud Trail, which now has been designated as a wild and scenic river. We need to do some work in there in terms of managing the numbers of people and when those folks are in there. And part of the wild and scenic river designation will require us to develop a comprehensive river management plan. And in that plan, we'll have to identify the number of people that are appropriate to use that at one time.
Yeah, that was quite a feat, wasn't it? Getting that area designated as a wild and scenic river.
Yeah, there was the Friends of East Rosebud, a local grassroots organization.
Ranchers and everybody else supported that.
They moved that.
That was a good piece of work,
Congress.
I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So you also have a ski area on your district, and some of that's on national forest. Are you intimately involved in ski area planning and that kind of thing, Ken? Or
Well, so you're correct. I mean, most of the Red Lodge Mountain ski area is on the national forest, and as such, we have some responsibilities there to work with the Red Lodge Mountain ski area, in terms of their operation and lifts and some of those safety measures. One of the things that we've actively been working with the ski area in terms of planning on is some vegetation management, specifically to reduce fuels in and around the ski area, just to give us a few more options when a wildfire will eventually threaten that. We'll just have some fuel breaks and some thinned out areas so that it gives firefighters a few more options to work with, in the event that it's threatened by a wildfire.
timber sales and timber management has been controversial. Do you expect any problems there? I mean, that was a pretty scary fire that threatened that area not that long ago. It sounds sensible to me to do something to reduce the risk of fire there.
Yeah, to answer your question, I think most people will support it. Most people aren't aware of it at the moment because we really haven't. We've just done a lot of preliminary work, and we haven't quite unveiled that plan to the public. I think most people will be supportive because I think most people in Red Lodge certainly understand the economic importance of the area. But we are working on some other veg management projects on the district.
Okay.
The Greater Red Lodge area timber project, which includes some area around Red Lodge Mountain in the Palisades area and in Nichols Creek and then main Red Lodge Creek. That one's been in the planning process for a number of years. We were litigated on it, and we're working through trying to get that back out on the street. But there's that. We're starting to do some planning over in the Stillwater landscape, and there just hasn't been much in the way of commercial timber sales or even intensive
controversial,
veg
isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's
and
very
some of that would help with fire and other things, I think.
Yeah, I think it's part of that is part of the reason we're doing that is to try and break up the monoculture of lodgepole pine across the Beartooth face. Again, to give us a few more options in terms of managing wildfire. But there's also what I would call a restoration component to that as well, trying to get more aspen on the landscape. And we also have these patches of ponderosa pine across the Beartooth face that I think it would be important to help reinvigorate some of those different vegetative components that have been suppressed over time just because they've been.
So who's involved in planning a vegetation management like that? Do you have wildlife biologists that help?
Yeah, it's what we would call an interdisciplinary team. I mean, it's involved. It includes wildlife biologists, timber specialists, silviculturists, fisheries biologists, hydrologists, soil scientists. So just about every resource that we have on the forest has a specialist that is intimately knowledgeable about that resource, and it helps inform those decisions.
The public will be keenly interested in that activity, will they not?
I believe so.
Yeah, so you'll have to do some outreach. Let's have another program on that when you're ready to go, Ken.
Would love to do that.
We'll explain to people
love to do that.
what's going on. The amount of volunteerism that you have, or do you have many volunteers in your work?
We do. I'd say most of our volunteers come in the form of people that want to work on trails. And Allie Wood on our staff is kind of the mover and shaker there. She
does a good job there.
She does. So we've got backcountry horsemen, Beartooth backcountry horsemen that help us out quite a little bit.
Another good group.
We've got some folks out of Billings with Exxon that come down annually. We've got some retired smoke jumpers that come here. Montana Conservation Corps helps us out a lot every year. Beartooth Recreational Trails Association here in Red Lodge provides volunteers for various trails projects. So
that helps spread difficult budgets out, does it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. some of that's, those folks aren't involved in a lot of like the heavy maintenance work, but just having people out there that can keep the brush back and remove down logs from across the trail. I mean, it all helps.
Yeah, you bet.
Absolutely.
Ken, the West Fork of Rock Creek gets pretty heavy use up there too. Have you got any plans? That's some of the Red Lodge watershed too. That's a pretty sensitive area.
Yeah, it is. It is. We've actually had some planning work that we did almost a decade ago, really with a fuels reduction emphasis, because we've identified the West Fork as a kind of a defensible line, if you will, if we get fires. We also, though, we have campgrounds, we have summer recreation residences in the West Fork.
Got a couple of Girl Scout camp up there, don't you?
Yeah, the Timbercrest Girl Scout camp. And so we're going to reinitiate. We didn't quite get all that work done, so people will probably see some work in 2021 where we're doing some fuels reduction work in there. And the other piece of the West Fork of Rock Creek, it is the municipal watershed for Red Lodge. So there's some. I mean, a lot of that watershed was burned in 2008 in the Cascade Fire, and a lot of that has come back quite nicely in grasses and forbs and aspen as well. But some of this work is to, if we can give ourselves more options should a fire get in the West Fork. We're also concerned about the impacts that a fire would have on that water supply.
Yeah. Fire. We're in the fire season as we tape this. I notice you've got a fairly substantial fire crew here.
We do.
Is that increased over the years?
It has. It has. We added to it. We added several employees late in the summer this year.
Yeah, I know more budget has gone into firefighting, hasn't it?
That's
bigger percentage.
Typical for across the agency, actually.
I don't know. I'm concerned about climate change and how it will impact your work and our public lands. Is that something that you professionals think about much, or I'm not sure how you deal with it, but.
Yeah, I think about it, and we think about it as an agency. It's when I think about it, I think about it more in terms of obviously what can we do locally, and in my mind, going back to our short conversation about the veg management work that we're doing, I believe based on what I've seen come out in some of the peer-reviewed literature is that this area, scientists predict that aspen will become a more dominant species here, and so I think about what can we do to help mitigate those impacts of climate change, or not really mitigate so much as adapt to climate change. It's a tall order to try and tackle climate change at a ranger district level, but there are things that we can do to mitigate those impacts.
Ken Coffin, thank you so much. I'm glad you're where you are. Having good managers on our public lands is important to me, and it's important to all of us.
Thanks, Mike.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.